Welcome to Let's Get Defensive, the show where we take news items from recent news about aerospace and defense and talk about how proper PLM practices can help make success. We're going to talk about high-tech billion-dollar contracts, missiles strapped to pickup trucks.
I was about to interrupt you there and say you're on the wrong show again, but you actually are on the right show this time around. Well done, Bryan.
It happens. If it flies, floats, drives, or explodes, we're covering it, basically. We've got a pretty good show lineup for you this week. Sounds like Toyota Hiluxes are going tactical. Belgium is gearing up for air defense with European flair, of course, and then drones that suspiciously look like they might moonlight in the cargo business. Stay tuned. It'll be a packed show.
So buckle up, leave us your thoughts, leave us your comments, or even questions along the way. It's a busy show.
Coming up, General Dynamics, U.S. Navy, GE Aerospace, Lilium, CAE, Safran, Roketsan, Aselsan, Kinetic, the U.S. Army, HDT, MBDA, Kawasaki. We've got a lot of stuff happening, from defense contracts to tactical vehicles. You know what? Let's just kick it off with our first story.
Sounds great. General Dynamics Mission Systems has landed a contract to develop Medusa, which stands for Mining Expendable Delivery Uncrewed Submarine Asset, which is a next-gen uncrewed maritime mining system for the U.S. Navy. The deal is kicking off with a $16 million initial value, including program management, design, engineering, and testing through September 2026. And of course, if options are extended, the total contract could get up to nearly $60 million. Medusa itself, though, is featuring a medium-class uncrewed underwater vehicle, UUV, capable of launching from submarine torpedo tubes. Sounds like they're aiming for 4 prototype units to be ready by late 2026.
Aiming for 4 prototypes. I see what you did there.
That's right. I try.
So what comes first? The name of the Greek god that you make your the name of your equipment so it ties together in an acronym. I'm not sure. Medusa. Where do they get these from?
I mean, that was
challenge.
one. You've got. I mean, to make that work, mining expendable delivery uncrewed submarine asset.
Yeah,
you had to get the name first to make that one work.
You got it. But the number one challenge here is logistics. It's a nightmare getting 4 prototypes ready, designed, tested, fitted into basically torpedo tubes along the way. So logistics nightmare has to be the number one. Bryan?
So you're saying that Medusa is a thing of nightmares?
For sure.
So I think, first off, with that name, there's a lot to unpack. I mean, especially the expendable part. Says a lot. But the contract that GDMS won here is going to encompass program management, design, systems engineering, fabrication, testing, integration. The contract contains things that we have talked about at one point or another, all of these areas being our most important. We both argued all of these, depending on if we decided we agree or disagree with each other. So my number one is going to be one I'm sure that Andrew is going to attack and disagree with, but I'm going to go with design. There are so many considerations for this project. Design is going to be the most crucial, the most critical.
You left yourself open here. I got to say, design, yeah, it's important, but come on, you can't have. You can have the slickest design in the world, but if your logistics can't get it out the door and into those torpedo tubes on time, all you've basically got is an expensive paperweight. Let's face it, if design's the brain, logistics the muscle. So without both, you're just going to be swimming around in circles and not letting anything out your tubes.
But is swimming in circles what Medusa is supposed to do? I mean, what is it supposed to do? Is it digging or retrieving mined resources? How deep is it going? How is it going to communicate with the overworld? What's the integration with the rest of the fleet? Is it autonomous? Is it controlled? These are all the requirements that have to be figured out. And more likely in this situation, requirements are going to be dynamic based off the testing and the feedback that's going to be happening with the users. So figuring out how to integrate the testing, integrate the results of this into new requirements, into the design, so that it can survive the harsh conditions, do everything it's supposed to do. You've got to have a solid DCM process.
Design and change process. Yeah. I mean, it's complex, don't get me wrong, but that's exactly why we would need for the solution here a solid requirements traceability. That's good for me. Is going to be your number one solution in the critical threat. every question and statement you made, you throw out there, from digging into autonomy to search to find these mines, because that's another one of the use cases, is going to require a clear trail of requirements, feedback, and adjustments to stay aligned as they iterate and they test. So no gaps, no assumptions, just one synchronized thread every step of the way.
You're right on that solution. And we only have 2 years to get this all done. The U.S. Navy wants the delivery of 4 prototypes by the end of 2026. And then if that goes well, the contract could extend until 2032 and $58 million. So you want this to go well. They need to have this DCM process figured out. They need to have the requirements traceability figured out, but they need to do it fast.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about our defense manufacturing timeline has got to dramatically increase. It's got to speed up to compete with what is now out there on every present danger every day. So that timeline's no joke, I agree. But what we need to do is to bring in predictive analytics from an AI perspective as a solution here, because using AI to anticipate any bottlenecks in the production or testing phases means that they won't get blindsided by delays. So it's about keeping that 2-year timeline realistic by preemptively spotting issues before they slow down the whole operation.
Now, this is the only show where we could have started with ancient Greek gods and ended up with sci-fi AI.
Yeah.
It's the best, though. Here's something that I can get behind, though. Lilium and GE Aerospace have partnered to enhance safety for eVTOL aircraft through advanced flight data systems. GE's Event Measurement System, EMS, is trusted by over 60 airlines, 500 business jet operators. It really is going to be integrating with Lilium's data platform, which offers insights to support Lilium jet operators. This collaboration really is laying the groundwork for flight data monitoring and quality assurance program, which reinforces safety and efficiency for eVTOL operations. I don't know. I would be excited to get into an eVTOL if I knew that all of this was behind it. But it sounds like the first customer deliveries of the Lilium jet are slated for 2026. And then it sounds like the eVTOL market is projected to hit $1 trillion by 2040. That's 15 years to hit $1 trillion. That's
a lot of money. But did I just hear Greg say you would be willing to get in an eVTOL?
More willing, depending on the safety that is behind it. So
anybody who has watched this show before, every time we talk about these, knows that Greg wants nothing to do with them. So this is big news. Yeah. This collaboration, in order to help make things safe enough for Greg to feel comfortable, which is what this is all about. This collaboration is going to hinge on proper data sharing, proper data analytics. And I could argue either one of these. So I'm just going to go with whatever Andrew doesn't say.
I've been tracking eVTOLs for years, and I'll be blunt, I'm a big fan. I'm first in line when the first one takes off. I really am. I'm such a good thing. But it's consistent. All of these startups are hitting the same challenges, which is regulatory hurdles, missing ever-evolving safety standards with eVTOL tech is the real bottleneck, especially when you're under heavy scrutiny from aviation authorities all over the world.
See, I think that what they're doing here is going to help get all those regulations to actually be passable, because this whole collaboration here, this whole thing is about figuring out the safety, making everything more safe based off of flight data. And they already have an event measurement system that is being used by airlines around the world, 60 airlines. There's so much data there that they can now use to figure out how are we going to integrate our new flight paths and flight devices, all these, what are we going to have? I don't know, hundreds, thousands of eVTOLs buzzing around the city, Jetson style at some point. There's so much data to figure out and then analyze of how do we make all of this safe. So I think you still have to figure out what you're doing with the data. How are you analyzing it? How are you sharing it properly? All of that.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. I love the whole data sharing and the analytics side of things. It's beautiful. But it ain't going to mean too much if your regulators ground your entire operation over safety concerns. So you can have all the data in the world, but if it doesn't pass that, and this is a technical term now, bureaucratic sniffy test, those jets are not going to leave the ground anytime soon.
Bureaucratic sniffy test.
Yeah. What you got to say?
I'll have to confirm that. Fact check it.
Yeah, we'll have to Google, see if that's actually a real technical term. But
Yeah.
I do think that we're arguing, quote unquote, against each other here, but really figuring out how to make things safe is what we're both actually driving.
Yeah, we're aiming for the same thing.
That's how you get that's what the regulations are for, is safety.
Yeah.
So I think that the investment here is actually showing us clearly that big companies are expecting eVTOL to be a gigantic industry, and they're trying to pave the airways. I'm going to go with that, pave the airways to prepare for this. Having a real-time monitoring and flight data analysis is going to help make this a safe and exciting way to travel, so that we can get Greg to fly around.
So the number one solution that we would introduce here for me, because we're all in that kind of regulatory spotlight piece, is going to be quality management and certification. You get that, you take care of everything. We need a system that's going to track compliance from day one across every single angle, be that FDA, FDM, QA, safety benchmarks, etc. Every box needs to be checked for these jets to get them airborne.
And we'd be a little bit remiss if we didn't point out that in order to figure out what you're talking about, as far as, how do we use these regulations and get quality management control, and also how to just analyze the data I was talking about above, we could always use predictive maintenance with AI.
Yeah, exactly. That's your AI solution, isn't it? Is once you've got them flying, is predictive maintenance analytics is going to be needed. So you can make sure you're monitoring that flight data, preemptively flagging maintenance needs. So you're not just meeting safety standards, but also staying ahead of them, keeping those jets in the air and the regulator off your back.
Yeah, that's, of course, had to sprinkle a little AI in there, right? CAE has created an immersive app for Apple Vision Pro, revolutionizing how pilots are training by enabling practice outside of traditional training centers. This app is, of course, simulating a virtual flight deck, helping pilots build familiarity and muscle memory through this interactive and remote training. Sounds like users are going to be able to explore controls, follow guided procedures, practice flight deck interactions with just simple hand gestures. I mean, currently tested with the Bombardier Global 7500, the app is expected to launch in spring 2025 with potential expansion to other aircraft. This is great. This will give Microsoft Flight Simulator a run for their money, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. Number one challenge is going to be accessibility and scalability. We know that Apple, with its kind of Vision Pro headset, they know how to do things at scale, no question about it. But you're talking about really the app in there being accessible, being scalable, making sure that it can be deployed widely and affordably across different aircraft types and different pilot needs, not just for a few kind of high-end luxury jets. This is really something at scale that's got to be deployed. That's the biggest challenge. Bryan, what's your best?
Well, we've talked about the use of augmented reality and virtual reality in training and maintenance before, but this really feels next level. And yeah, Microsoft Flight Simulator, eat your heart out. I know you love it, Greg, but I think this is,
I wouldn't go that far.
We're going to see this sort of technology used more and more in other applications, including military and space. And in all of these use cases, I think my number one is actually accuracy. But what I mean by that is, how do we ensure that what's being trained, what's being practiced is accurate with the real life situation, so that the muscle memory that the pilots are learning, the lessons learned, the how to react when things go wrong, match the actual real life situations.
Accuracy is great, but what good is a hyper realistic virtual cockpit if only a handful of your pilots can actually access it? We're talking about making training scalable and accessible for every single pilot, not just the ones with the deep pockets and fancy planes. Otherwise, we're just training a bunch, frankly, of a bunch of Bond villains, I would say.
But if you're going to train, you have to make sure that what you're training is correct. And I think I'm just going to beat Andrew to this. I'm going to go ahead and talk about AI and product validation here. It can be used to help create the scenarios, help analyze the real life data to then put these into scenarios to test thousands of scenarios for accuracy once they've been created. I think that's the biggest solution I can come up with here is we need to use AI in product validation.
I think you need a foundation before you start bringing in lots of AI, and that part of the critical thread I would call is product validation and simulation. That's going to allow you to simulate diverse flight scenarios and environments within the app, making sure that the training is not only realistic, but rigorously validated across various conditions and various aircraft. It's going to keep that muscle memory, I think you said, relevant without needing real world flights taking place. And then you can bring your AI algorithms over the top.
Yeah, that's true. Tailoring those training scenarios. I mean, I'm sure pilot Chelsea Sullenberger, we all know him as Sully, would want to weigh in on this, right? He's the guy that's known for landing the plane in the Hudson after critical engine failure, right? And I think the whole thing in Sully is, all right, what's the pilot's reaction versus what does the simulator show? And so while we can't watch Sully right now, here's something you can watch. Lots going on in MRO there.
But MRO was news item after news item after news item. I mean, what's that? What's that saying to us? We know the materials and making new aircraft at scale or making new equipment at scale is strained. So therefore, you've got to keep them flying or keep them operational a lot longer. So MRO is just bigger and bigger and bigger all the time now, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
There's a nugget in there about a ceramic matrix composite being used for engines.
Yeah.
That's going to be cool.
Yep.
It's awesome. I know this came up as one of the commercials, and we've talked a lot in previous weeks about India and the growth that we've seen in India, but we can't forget about all the manufacturing growth we've seen in Mexico over the last 12 months. And we've even talked about it probably about 6 months ago and are continuing to see. So Safran Mexico is expanding with 2 new plants, one in Chihuahua to produce evacuation and rescue equipment, and another in Querétaro focused on MRO for single aisle aircraft engines. Now, the Querétaro facility is aiming to service up to 350 engines annually, includes a high-tech test cell to verify engine parameters before before returning them, on top of an expansion for new aircraft engines. And that expansion is actually going to make Mexico the third largest producer of turbojets for single-aisle aircraft globally, trailing only, any guesses? Any guesses? The US and France. I mean, of course, Mexico's strategic location, being close to the U.S. market, having access to Brazilian market, is going to be huge. Mexican talent has become a competitive asset. 34 years of industry experience supporting high-tech processes, manufacturing growth. There's a lot happening. It's good.
So 350 engines annually. Engines are not a small thing.
Yeah.
You mentioned that. You mentioned a test cell to see how they're going to perform under conditions, to quality check these engines before they head back to customers, and building some new engines as well. So this, the third largest producer, my number one here is workforce training and skill development. You need to have folks who can do this, who know what they're going to do, have the continuous learning. You're going to have to build up a huge workforce to make all of this work.
Yeah. Sorry, Andrew. I don't know what you're going to say, but I agree.
No, I'm not going with that, because I think emerging economies always start from a throw more people at things, because they're coming out of people are cheaper and therefore just throw more people at it. I've seen it all over the world. So I'm not going to go with that. I'm going to say their number one challenge is actually going to be supply chain coordination. Scaling up your production and servicing 350 engines annually isn't just about the skills. It's about aligning your supply chain across multiple borders, managing your logistics without any bottlenecks. Take that.
One way to help not have bottlenecks is to make sure that the people are ready to handle all of these things. Mexico needs to retain talent in the country. They need to foster an ecosystem of technological innovation and strengthen the high impact doctoral programs, like the whole education process of just leading up to this, and then what about the ecosystem of OEMs acquiring technology? For example, in this case, Safran, you've got to see how is that going to go into the country's chain? How is it going to participate in this technology? How do you get folks trained on any of these new things you're bringing in?
Bryan, you can have the most skilled workforce on the planet, but if the parts don't show up on time, those engines ain't going anywhere. It's like training for me. It's like training for a marathon, but forgetting to buy your sneakers. Logistics is what's going to get you across the line.
You need people to make logistics happen, at least for now. I mean, I'm sure it's replaced by androids, but right now. So I want to look at augmented reality for training, looking at using this to see how you do the repairs, tablets on the floor to see the engineering specs, related videos, maybe AR glasses. You need training of the systems, the engineering, the skills, and continuous learning for all of these things as new processes and new types of engines come on to be repaired.
Yeah, it's supply chain management and integration for me, the big solution here. You've got cross-border dynamics going on. You've got to ensure that everything from your raw materials to finished components are going to flow smoothly between Mexico, US, and Brazil. Keeping that production on track and plants running efficiently is going to be reliant on all of those parts coming in. Then I'm going to bring in AI.
Yeah, that was my prediction.
Huh?
I have a prediction that you're about to talk about AI.
100%. Predictive supply chain analytics is going to monitor for potential disruptions in the supply chain, optimize your inventory levels. That means that Safran can keep production consistent and avoid any hiccups from the delays that may come in from that cross-border supply chain.
I can see
Got to get it there to build it.
It's true, but you get all the product there, and then what happens to it? Nothing if you don't have the people. It's a valid argument. I like what both of you said. I'm going to think on it. Rocket-san showcased an innovative use of the Toyota Hilux at SAHA 2024, equipping it with look at that. It's also bright yellow, but depending on where it's at, it could be good. Equipping it with I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, Jirit 70 millimeter laser guided missile system. This cost-effective setup includes 4 missile launchers and Aselsan's Karakurt EO-IR system with a laser designator for target acquisition. The Hilux's reputation for durability and ease of use in conflict zones really is making it a practical choice for militaries with budget constraints. The Jirit missile bridges the gap between unguided rockets, pricier anti-tank systems, which I feel like is a pretty good gap to fill in there. Similar in concept, though, to the U.S. Vampire system, this platform is really underlining a trend of using civilian vehicles for military purposes. I think it's neat, combining mobility, advanced firepower in an affordable.
I've just got a real nightmare in my head going on, and I'm going to start with safety and operator training on this one. I'm going along the road in my Hilux, and somebody's just strapped, a missile launcher to the back, making sure that the operators can use this integrated missile system effectively in high stress combat environments without putting themselves or others at risk. I think safety and operator training is number one.
So now you're on board with training people.
Yeah, I am now.
Okay.
Number one, unequivocal.
You just weren't like 5 minutes ago. Okay. So the development here is offering a lower cost option for military operations where affordability, mobility are essential. This is literally a missile in the bed of your pickup truck. So I think integrations is the challenge. You've got to correctly fit this firepower into the bed of the pickup in a way that's not going to cause damage or problems when it launches. It's not like it's a stable pad. It's got wheels, it moves, it's going to, etc. You've got to have the controls integrated into the driver's cabin in a convenient way so they can be trained on how to use them. But the integration is going to be the key for all of this.
Yeah, integration is important, but little Johnny's just been driving his Hilux, down the road without a missile launcher in the back. Without proper training for Johnny, we're just one bumpy road away from accidentally launching a rocket while picking up our supplies from Walmart or wherever it may be.
Yes, I don't think that you get a driver's license then pop into one of these things. I mean, yeah, you do have to have a little more advanced training than that. But when we look at this,
these could be on the roads. It's the election today. Don't forget, guys. These could be on the roads tomorrow.
That's right.
If it goes the way that someone doesn't want, I don't know. But
it really does kind of look like a redneck pickup truck. You just put a missile in the back of the pickup. But
yeah, the last thing you need is a guy who's just doing his parallel parking, pressing the wrong button. I think this could be tricky.
We're joking about this, but actually the Hilux was prominent during the 1980s during the Chadian Libyan conflict, which became known as the Toyota War because of this.
Yeah.
So this has actually been a usage that has been around for a while, since the 80s, which is 3-4 years ago, right? And it's something that's
feels like it. Yeah.
But this is next level here. It's a new configuration with 4 Jirit missiles. It's got an electro-optical, infrared, and EO-IR system installed on the top of the cabin. It's got laser designator for target acquisition. It's got the ability to identify and engage targets. It's got all of this stuff, which means it's integrated into the Hilux pickup in a way that's effective, light, cost-effective. Integration was the key. And
So is that your problem with? I don't know, Brian. I'm getting confused with your argument here. It's very strange. The solution has to be design and change management tied in with your PDM, your product data management solution.
Thank you for joining me on the design and change management training for I do appreciate
I'm in your wheelhouse. So that making sure that every design change, from mounting specifics to safety checks, is documented and integrated seamlessly. Your operators then are going to get a clear, updated understanding of the system, making sure that they're handling things rather safely and adaptably in the field. And then I need to add in a bit of AI, so a bit of augmented reality for training and real-time assistance. So AI is going to be able to provide that real-time guidance so that when you're parallel parking, you don't press the wrong button, making sure that they navigate that system accurately in high-stakes situations.
I really wish I just had a picture of a line of these things parallel parked together so I could just show you here that they can be parallel parked.
There you go.
I do love the balance though between not too expensive, but a good alternative for budget friendly. I don't know. It's good. But you're right. Safety is going to be a big part of that. Kinetic has secured the ATS-3 contract from the U.S. Army, marking its debut as a prime contractor in the U.S. with an IDIQ contract worth up to $95 million. The contract itself will have Kinetic providing a suite of aerial systems, including the advanced MQM-185B, also known as the Banshee Jet 80 Plus, for global training and testing exercises. There's a good photo of it right there. This win is solidifying Kinetic's reputation for developing adaptable, high-performing aerial targets with a mission success rate of 97% over the past 5 years, which feels extremely high. Kinetic's global expertise in engineering, robotics, advanced payload integration is going to be pivotal here, enhancing the target system performance and replicating evolving threats.
If it's a targeting system, what's the definition of success? Missed it or got it? I wonder.
I think operating like the things you want to practice targeting,
Okay.
like being a realistic version of, testing your weapons against it. It's got to be something that matches what you're actually going to be shooting if you have to shoot. So, but one thing that Greg mentioned here was this was an IDIQ contract. That's an indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract. It could be worth up to 95 million, but right now you're not really sure, how many you're going to make. So how do you plan for it? It's hard to plan when you don't know how many, you don't know when they're due, but you just have to figure that this is going to be defined later. And this is the first time Kinetic has entered the U.S. market as a prime contractor for highly sophisticated aerial targeting systems. So they're now going to be competing for task orders, meaning they're going to be competing with others to try to win all these task orders for the ability to simulate the threats for the Army's training. Kinetic is not only that, but they're going to have to deliver the operational support. They're going to have for all of these targets as they're provided, probably training and how to use them, all of this kind of stuff. There's so many issues we could talk about, but my number one challenge is going to be, how do I keep my cost low enough to compete with the other providers while making products at scale and speed when I don't even know how many of them I'm going to have to make?
I don't know if cost is your biggest issue here. I think, they're coming into a ever increasingly competitive space. And when we're dealing with one of their competitors actually at the moment, we're about to kick off and get manufacturing done. And the biggest thing here is plan for the worst, which is scalability. Plan for scalability. So yeah, cost control is important because you got to win the bid. I get it. But when you're handling IDIQ contracts, the real curveball is suddenly you've got to move at scale. You've got to be fast enough to meet any task order volume that might come your way. So you've got to be ready for scale. That's the number one, Brian.
I agree. You've got to be ready for scale. You've got to, and it's the challenge though, is you don't know. IDIQ, you just don't know when and how many. And so it's like, I don't know. It's like you have a taco stand and you don't know how many you got to plan for. What's your crowd going to be? How's it going to happen when I need to put all these tacos out at lunchtime? Or maybe I don't have enough when people show up. Like, how do you plan for what's going to happen here?
Yeah. Keeping low cost is great. I agree. But what happens when that army suddenly orders 500 aerial targets overnight? We're not just talking about making them affordable. We need to be able to literally churn these things out like they're coming off a conveyor belt. Otherwise, you went with tacos. I'm going to go with burgers. I think it's like having a burger stand with no burgers when the crowd shows up. You've got to be able to churn it out at scale.
And with that, you've got to be able to probably have your supplies figured out so you can acquire them fast to start turning your order over immediately with your 500. You've got to
material planning and inventory management's got to be spot on. Yeah. And that would probably be our first solution, wouldn't it? It's making sure they've got material planning, inventory management lined up, not just from an MRP perspective, but from an operational line perspective. And that approach is going to make sure that the right materials, the inventory levels are ready to go at scale based upon the demand. It's all about meeting that unpredictable volume that an IDIQ can come in with without sacrificing the speed or without sacrificing your quality. A good way to really help that intelligence is going to be demand forecasting with AI predictive analytics as well. You bring that in, it's going to be able to give you that real intelligence without having to rely on kind of collaborative, integrated, humanized environments. Bringing your AI in, it's going to give you that real predictability.
Of kind of like maybe based off the history when it thinks spikes might happen in orders, when so you can kind of prepare a little bit for what you are predicting is going to happen.
Exactly. I feel like a commercial break.
Yeah.
Autonomous combat from aircraft carriers.
Yeah. Or for weapon of the week, is it that LOMTAS Rocketsan 5.5 kilometer range anti-tank weapon? One of those two, I don't know.
I think it is. Rocketsan's doing a lot in the missile defense category. It's HDT Global's Hunter Wolf was selected for the U.S. Army's Small Multi-Purpose Equipment Transport Increment 2 program, valued just under $12 million. The 6x6 unmanned ground vehicle you can see here is boasting electric motors, hybrid electric drive, really offering stealth, ruggedness, and efficient power management, which is perfect for challenging missions. Known as a robotic Swiss Army knife, it supports modular mission packages for versatile use and meets SMET requirements with advanced tech tailored for future adaptability. It'll be good. I mean, reduced burden on soldiers is always a good thing. And then, of course, enhanced operational support.
Number one is going to be long-term durability of this thing. You know, with that Hunter Wolf is facing really extreme mission environments, because as soon as you've got a robot that's going to go and do it, we as humans are just going to throw it in there, aren't we? I said, yeah, that'll handle that. So the key challenge is going to be making sure these vehicles are built to endure really, really tough conditions without frequently breaking down or having to be maintained after every single mission to the nth degree. So that's it. Long-term durability. What you got, Bryan?
I mean, this is a cool vehicle, the Swiss Army knife on wheels. And right now, they're currently testing exactly what you said. They're going to be testing the ruggedness, how it's going to work with the missions. But if they win this contract, you know, if they're the final selection, it's going to be all about manufacturing at scale.
Yeah, all well and good. And I'm a big fan of getting things going at scale. But what happens if these things fall apart after a few rough little missions? We're talking We're talking with a Swiss Army knife toughness, not Swiss cheese durability. If they're not built to last, the army's just buying a fleet of kind of fancy lawn ornaments. Yeah.
You're proud of that one, aren't you?
I am. I like that. Do you like
I am
that?
too.
Swiss
Good job.
Army to Swiss cheese. Yeah.
I'm so confused because Andrew is the one who tried to make a punny joke instead of one of us, Greg. I don't know what's happening.
I actually didn't hear you laugh, either of you, so I'm quite upset.
I did.
Okay.
I'm going to go back to, I think they've already figured out, they have said, hey, Army, test this. I think they've already figured out the durability. I think they've already figured that out, and they're now trying to make sure that once they win, they're ready to actually make these at scale. And I think part of figuring out that durability was the fact that these are modular, they have modular mission packages. So if parts do fail, they can be replaced modularly to keep the whole thing working as well.
So that brings us together nicely into the solution of the critical thread. And I'm going to go to meet both of our concerns over durability and whatever you came up with on manufacturing operations management, covering both of our points. I think it ensures we're not only producing at scale, but it also embeds the quality controls needed to deliver reliable mission-ready vehicles that are not Swiss cheese durability.
Greg, I have often thought that Andrew doesn't really listen to me.
Now it's
confirmed.
and the fact that he just confirmed it really does not warm my heart at all.
Yeah.
I know, but I forgot the AI piece. Predictive maintenance is going to be needed on this, and that's all about AI, making sure that thing is only maintained to where it needs to be maintained. So you've got your IoT devices in the machine as it's going out there. So bringing AI predictive maintenance.
I mean, I will say that putting in AI predictive maintenance into something that is robotic does probably make sense.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, since we're all listening to each other, Belgium is poised to select the European-made SAM-PT system from MBDA over the American Patriot for medium-range air defense. This is actually marking Belgium's first foray into acquiring such a system, which does fill a critical gap between military capabilities, and it really kind of aligns Belgium with broader EU defense cooperation. Known for countering threats up to 600 kilometers, including ballistic missiles and drones, the SAM-PT features the Aster 30 missiles, a rotating AESA radar, and 360-degree coverage. The variant, though, does include advanced guidance and control tech, which is hopefully going to boost its effectiveness against hypersonic threats up to 1,000 kilometers. Potential contracts here, right? Worth hundreds of millions of euros, lots of money here. It does sound like they're integrating this system is going to be positioning Belgium within a network of European SAM-PT users like France, like Italy, which is going to support that interoperability and shared defense.
There's exactly, you hit the nail on the head, Greg. I'm glad you're on my side on this one. This is interoperability.
Don't get used to it.
with existing NATO systems. That's the biggest hurdle they're going to have.
Yeah.
It's ensuring that the seamless interoperability within the wider NATO network is going to be really critical. That's going to be the biggest challenge, I think. Otherwise, shared resources and defense coordination is going to be a real struggle.
Yeah.
Before we dive into NATO, I just want to focus specifically on Belgium here because they're equipping themselves with the medium-range air defense system. It's a long-standing gap they're trying to close in their military capabilities. And the SAM-PT surface-to-air missile defense system, it's going to handle a lot of threats, cruise missiles, tactical ballistics from manned and unmanned aircraft. And I think, this was it was made by a joint venture between MBDA and Thales. It means we had collaboration. We had design. Now we've got to figure out how to test it successfully, get it integrated into the existing systems, and probably into the NATO ones you're about to talk about.
Testing and integration within Belgium is fine, but this is NATO we're talking about. Imagine installing a state-of-the-art missile defense system and then realizing it's the only one that speaks a different language. For me, if this thing can't talk to the rest of NATO's assets, it's just going to be a very expensive doorstep outside of Belgium.
I mean, I
Stop.
really
Door stop.
I hate to do this,
Okay.
but we're on the same page.
Okay. So what's the solution?
So in order to figure out how you're going to integrate, we always go, I talk about this a lot, and it's the requirements. We've got to look at what are our requirements for integration? What are our requirements to making sure all these specifications, everything work correctly? So we need some sort of system that lets us do a really fantastic job of requirements traceability.
Yep, I agree. On top of that, we'd get our requirements traceability fixed in our critical thread. I would also bring in AI here to deploy a cross-platform compatibility analysis tool as well. So AI will then assess and simulate compatibility within NATO's existing defense systems, predicting and flagging potential issues in real time. Something that's way beyond a kind of collaborative, humanized environment. Make sure that the system will function as a cohesive part of NATO's defense grid.
Yeah, we may be upsetting Greg here because we actually agreed.
Yeah.
On occasion, I'm okay with that. And I feel like today we need more agreement with the election coming up. But Kawasaki Heavy Industries has debuted its K-Racer X2 VTOL UAV at the Japan Aerospace Exhibition in Tokyo, emphasizing its maritime and cargo transport capabilities. Look at that thing. The K-Racer project, which was initially aimed at high-speed UAV development, has pivoted to meet the demand for heavy cargo transport, leading to the K-Racer X2. This UAV is actually able to carry up to 200 kilograms, cover on over 100 kilometers, operate at altitudes of around 3,000 meters, which is pretty ideal for mountainous logistics and disaster relief. Sounds like earlier this year in 2024, there was a test involving supply delivery from pier to ship. So there might be some future naval applications here as well. I mean, sounds like they're also integrating sensors, communication tools, along with the JMSDF's upcoming research on the horizon detection using UAV mounted radars starting really later next year.
So this project originally began with the K-Racer to develop a high-speed unmanned aircraft. And during that development process, it became clear there was now a demand for heavy cargo transportation, which is why we have the K-Racer X2. This shows what can happen in development when you're testing and have a testing and change process that you now integrate, into your design. It integrated into or became a different functionality. So the K-Racer X2, as you said, it can now do heavy cargo. It might have defense cases, might resupply moving Navy vessels, can be used to detect targets beyond the horizon. I think this just shows that testing and figuring out your use case and being able to pivot those requirements, that's the challenge in this design process here is can we've already got momentum going. Can we and should we pivot? And the should we is a part you got to figure out how to develop. Like it is a decision you've got to make too.
Number one, scalability for multiple use cases. The challenge here isn't just defining that use case, it's actually ensuring that that K-Racer can be scaled and adapted for various missions from cargo to potential defense applications without needing to fully redesign every single time.
See, I don't think it had to be a full redesign. I think it was just a partial redirect because you can still have the K-Racer and it's, you just branched your process here. Now you're figuring out, okay, we also have this use case. Let's make this happen. So I think more use cases are going to come up. I think they're going to find more use cases for how we're going to use this because, we've mentioned how this whole, industry of what's happening with any kind of vertical takeoff is something that is becoming, it's going to infiltrate society. Basically, it's going to be everywhere. And I think we're going to find more use cases. And then how do we make our process, our DCM work with that?
Yeah, I think you're leaning into the solution here, which is going to be product structure and configuration management. I think that's going to be the big solution, so that you can modularize and make it even more adaptable with multiple configurations that suit different missions. We're talking about a plug and play versatility without compromising performance. So I think we're both lining up on the overall solution. But the question will be, what about AI?
Yeah, I mean, I think AI could definitely be used to help figure out what kind of or what needs to be modular, what kind of modular components do you need, the configurations to figure out the best way to configure things, the quickest, the cheapest, the easiest for users to actually go and make these changes from cargo to defense with minimal reconfiguration time. So it's really just finding a way to make everything adaptable at speed.
Adaptability at the speed of need.
Is that a new catchphrase?
That's the new one. It's the new one for the day.
I'm proud of you, Andrew. You've really stepped out. You stepped out today.
Hey guys, let's get back to the moment of the day. It's big election day today.
It's big election day.
Yes, everybody, yeah, go get back to the moment of the day. Go get out of here. And speaking of getting out of here, let's get out of here.